Double-edged sword. It's a double-edged sword because I let her come and everyone says hi and she's so cute and sweet. And then I gotta kick her out the door. That's okay. Now she's daddy's problem.
All right, so I have this up and it's streaming, so we're good to go. Great.
Diane, yesterday you had sent over an email for the sample policy,
Mm-hmm.
only there was nothing attached to it.
Okay, so
I just went to pull it up.
So I put it, so I have now placed it in the school board folder.
Ah, okay.
Right, so it's in the draft folder, but it's interesting because I don't know if yours I forgot to attach. I know I shared it with a couple of colleagues of mine from another district, and they weren't able to open the Word doc, which was just the weirdest thing. So I had to save it as a PDF so that they could view it. So I'm wondering if that was the same thing. But anyway, I was able to put it into our shared folder. So, and I also know Lisa did some work on it already in terms of just fixing it.
There's a locked one.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Is that the one? Yes.
Maybe.
JCL, the JLCB effective 9/1/21 shared. Is that the one that you've been working on, Lisa? Yes. So do you
need to move because Gabby is working on marshmallows for chemistry class, and I can't hear a word you're saying.
Yes, that is correct.
That was probably my favorite experiment from AP Chem. The marshmallows come out really, really good.
All right. So if you go into that JLCB, can you see the one with the little arrow on it?
Yeah, that's the one that's locked.
It's locked. So Lisa, is there a way that you can unlock it?
Just on Google, my Google Drive.
I guess so.
I can try.
I think you need to just like change your permissions.
Okay, I will try.
Okay. And again, I don't know like what changes that you've made to date, so I don't want to have us go backwards if you've made some progress with this.
Right, and normally we would be able to request permission, but I can't even do that. I can't even click on it.
If you right click, April, there should be a way. I requested access. I don't know who it went to.
Are you talking about JLCB?
Yes, sir.
I have it and can make a change. I'm going to try to share it.
Okay, thank you.
This is on this one.
Is it just April and Leanne who can't get in?
Well, we were trying to open one that had already been worked on.
Oh, well then that makes sense. Then I may be looking.
Oh, somebody made a change just now.
Oh, I see one that's
now open.
Leanne, I shared it with you, I think, just now.
Yeah, I see.
You did.
On it.
Did that work? Did it?
It did. I'm in.
Okay. All right.
Perfect.
So should I share it with April and Alicia, or how do you want to do that?
Well, it looks like I'm looking at, I'm the only one in the document I'm in, so I must need to.
If you can share that one, Lisa, because I don't know how you had your permissions set up.
Okay. So it's shared right now with Diane, Cindy, Patty, and Leanne, but I'll try to share it with April and Alicia.
That'd be great. Thank you. So, and there may be, I think that we can probably square away this policy. There may be a few minor changes because what will happen is the DOE is going to write the rule for this. It's called Chapter 126, and they haven't written that yet. It goes along with the statute. But I think that we're on safe ground to update this, and then I have no information about when 126 is going to be updated. And as I had said to the nurses at our meeting last week, there is a bill to modify this law. It doesn't look like it's gone out of committee at all yet, so I don't know whether it will in this session or not, but it's something that I'll keep going back to and revisiting to see if it's updated.
So I should have just shared it with Alicia and April. Yes.
Yep, I'm in.
And basically I took the Drummond Woodsum template and just filled in our information and took out the wording that's current and put in the wording for September 1, 2021. So if you did adopt that, you would have to either wait or do something else to make sure that it's accurate.
Are we able to review it to show the changes from the original document?
Oh, you mean like the changes that Lisa made today?
Yeah, so that way,
So if,
we know
yeah,
what
if
the
you
recommendation was for the lawyer and then what the nurses suggested.
if you pull up the template from Drummond Woodsum, and then basically it's kind of a step-by-step. It gives you directions what to do.
Yeah, well, so I don't have it printed out and I'm working on with Zoom and the agenda and 2 different policies. And so what I was wondering is if the revised version, if we can look at your version with the modifications from what Drummond and Woodson recommended, then we would be able to.
Why don't I
Doc.
share my screen and put the Drummond Woodsum sample on my screen, and then you can just look on your own computer at the one that we're updating. Would that work?
Sure.
Okay, let me just keep talking while I'm like setting this up.
And when you pull it up, Diane, I can kind of go through it and show you, explain where we made the changes. It's pretty self-explanatory, actually. If you look at it, they have any changes that you need to make are in italicized print. So it was pretty easy to actually do it.
Okay, so this is the one. All right, so I'm gonna go here.
And the one thing that I would point out from the Drummond and Woodson one, which Cindy actually pointed out to me, is at the top of it, it says somewhere as of September 12th. And Cindy and I believe that's a typo because I believe the law is changing September 1st.
Yeah, I think it is too. It is. And you
And all through the document, it says effective September 1st.
Yes, and I tried to find any legal information, and that's very hard to do, for me anyways. I couldn't find anything that said September 12th anywhere today, so I'm assuming it was a typo.
I think so
right,
too.
you can see my screen now, right?
Mhm. So do you want me to go through with just where I changed it? So all students who enroll in Scarborough Public Schools are required by Maine law, and everything stays the same until you get down to section B. So see where it says note effective September 1. So obviously I took that out and then just changed made the changes that they recommended. So, and then, and took out the crossed out words. So then down on C, took out that obviously, and then really basically you just start with a student covered by an IEP. So you take out that first sentence in C, and then the next 3 paragraphs I think are appropriate, or 2 paragraphs. So basically I just took out everything that they told us to take out. And then I omitted D because we do not sponsor immunization programs at the school.
Right, yep.
And then down a little bit further, I'm in agreement with the note. But then again, that's a board decision. Do you see the note that, so I just took that out and left it. I actually like what they recommended, arrangements shall be made. I like how they made that change. And I actually wanted, when we get to it, or if we get to it, I wanted to talk about the draft policy for communicable diseases, because I wondered if, in looking at all of that again today, I wondered if this statement replacing the 10 days absence might be more appropriate in the draft policy for communicable diseases as well. The Drummond Woodsum sample that they gave us was from 2020. So I don't know if it seems as though it would be applicable. Patty, Cindy, and I talked about it earlier today, and it made sense to us, but I wanted to see what the committee thought. But we can get to that one when we do communicable diseases. But this pretty self-explanatory. A lot of the research that I have been doing, because even after we sent the quick draft policy, I think it was 2019, or I was editing as Diane gave us the new information. I was updating and editing and actually putting things in from the law. And this basically takes the law and pastes it pretty much. The only concern we had was about the very beginning, and I think they made it ambiguous enough. I mean, you know, this is what they do for their jobs. I think they made it vague enough so that you wouldn't have to change that continually. I think that as nurses, that was our worry, that you would have to change the policy each time a law changed. But I think they've made it vague enough. They didn't have how many measles, mumps, rubella, and all of that. So I think it's okay. I'm pretty sure my colleagues are in agreement that it looks okay to us as the Drummond Woodsum sample. But again, this wouldn't be able to go into effect until September 1, 2021.
So this is just going to be held for action by the board until then? Is that what we're doing?
I don't know. I could come up with something if you wanted something prior to this new law. I mean, we could come up with something.
I think
totally up to you.
Yeah, and I think the intention was to have this policy in place so that our nurses could begin to work on making sure that people were going to be in compliance by September, right? So that's the rub on this, is that even though this doesn't go into effect on September 1st, it goes into effect on September 1st. And so that means that we can't wait until September 1st and say, oh, let's see who's in compliance, right? And so there's a lot of behind the scenes work that they need to do to make sure that we can hit this date.
So then I guess I'd like to talk as a group about what people think about passing it as written and then going back at September 1st and just editing it again. And like Lisa submitted to us and omitting the September 1st deadline so that it is board policy. The nurses can start notifying people that the change is coming and we've formally agreed on it, and then we'll just edit out that date.
Alicia, I would like to do that because one of our big concerns is if someone has had an exemption but doesn't have a medical exemption or their child doesn't have an IEP, it takes some time to catch up. And they're, could be in a tight fit at this point. So we want to give as much notice as possible to the people who have exemptions.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
And I know I've received inquiries already from some parents that, what do I need to do? They're still trying to figure it out if this is going to be required from a private school and that sort of stuff. But I was able to kind of walk them through it as, this particular vaccine is going to take, 7 months from beginning to end to complete,
So can we put this on for first read for the 25th April? We'll just include the effective September 1st. We'll need to put like in our parking lot a note that we need to come back to this at that date and just change out that date.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And then what's the process that you all will do to make sure that people get noticed? Do you contact individuals who are exempt?
So for right now, we've already drafted a letter that we will be editing. We were just waiting for this meeting and then the verbiage that we needed to put in the letter to be concise and accurate for parents to understand, easily to understand. So we will be sending out letters first it will go to those parents of students that have ongoing exemptions. We also plan to actually send something to the general population. So the entire district will get information on the new law, and this is what's coming. Usually we go at it from multiple modalities, and obviously focus really, or more individual focus will be on those parents that have ongoing exemptions, because as Patty said, we don't want it to be a shock to anyone. And it is hard, particularly with these times, to get caught up. And unfortunately, it takes sometimes up to 8 months for vaccines to get caught up. So we'll be working with families pretty closely, I think, as in the spring. I think, Patty, do you have anything to add?
Other than you can see part of what it does allow is the 90 days to say you're going to get caught up. So that will help with the timeline a bit.
Yeah.
But does still make it really important that we notify people as soon as possible.
Okay. Well, Diane got the draft language yesterday, so I think that we're all right on top of it. I'm proud of us.
Yeah, right.
No snoozing on the job here.
And while we have the nurses here, if you wanted to, I know last month we had started looking at JLCC, the communicable diseases. So while we have them here, would it be worth pulling that up? And
That's on the agenda.
perfect.
So we are doing.
Let me share. Let's see if I can share my screen again.
So I did pose the question to Drummond and Woodsum, as we had agreed upon, about superintendent or designee, and they agreed that that would be acceptable.
Thank you. That was a question that I had for that.
Well, good.
So here's that one.
Oh, perfect. I think the nurses, we looked at it, reviewed it. It looks great to us. The only question I had is the question that I brought up earlier, was about the 10 days. And that was just a thought, and I only caught it because I was looking at the immunization updated sample policy. So that clause that you're looking at right now is one that I just wondered if it made sense to put in the other statement that they put in their immunization sample.
Yeah.
And so just to clarify the issue for all of us, if I understand you correctly, this would provide that students under JLCC receive sort of additional accommodations from the school, in that the school will be required to provide accommodations if they're not before the 10-day period. Is that right?
Well, that was my question to the group. I don't know. Yes, Alicia, that's exactly what I was wondering.
That's something I would support. I'd love to hear what other people think. But,
I feel like, especially because if we have to exclude students for these very reasons, then there's no reason why arrangements couldn't be made. So it's a pretty, the statement, I don't know, I like the statement that they put in the immunization.
I mean,
I think arrangements shall be made for students who are excluded from school to receive and complete school assignments if possible, and to make missed examinations and other work within a reasonable time upon the return to school.
And when you think that the majority of people who have an exemption after September 1st will be for medical reasons, it seems like we really should be providing whatever is needed and make accommodations for them to make things up and not be penalized for being absent, or wait 10 days for them to be able to receive help.
Right. I mean, I think it's the right thing to do, right?
Right.
Like, somebody's not here, we miss them, we want to make sure they're getting their work.
Exactly.
does anybody feel differently?
Nope. I think from a consistency standpoint, I really like that the two policies would read the same too.
Agreed.
I agree. Yeah.
Now we need to talk to Kate. Kate's supposed to be joining us later, right, Diane?
Yep, after the nurses.
Okay, so we need to talk to her about,
Alicia,
yeah,
do you want this for first reading at the 225 meeting as well?
JLCC.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, if we can, that would be great. So we have this student or employee with my comment with 20A 6356. So I think that part we were just gonna leave to ask Kate about. Is that right? The employee part was the question.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then we have Leanne's comment highlighted. Do you remember why, Leanne, why that's highlighted currently?
No. Hold on.
What I remembered was that she wanted to put in the main CDC there, so then that way it had like a specific place like that you could hook onto, right? Like, and here's how we're going to know the danger is past. The CDC is going to tell us.
So this is a good question for our nurses. Would it be CDC that would make those regulations, or is there a different agency?
No, it would be the CDC, and we work close side by side. We work closely with them when we're determining when a student could come back for any communicable disease. So, and each one is different, as you know.
Yeah, okay, so.
So yes, that makes
Leah's
sense.
suggestion's a good one then.
Well, I loved it. Yes, yes, I think it's a great one.
Go, Leanne.
Yay. While I'm on the roll, I think the other one had to do up above. If there's a belief that the student has a communicable disease, the building principal shall be informed. I want to say that I had a question in there about whether or not there should be additional steps to report to the CDC. Or do we just let that be depending upon why they have the communicable disease?
I don't
And it's in the
understand.
second paragraph.
I see it. That's the paragraph that begins with teachers,
Yes.
but I don't understand the point. Sorry. I think I just
In
lost.
our last meeting, we talked about, we added the building principal because if I recall, the conversation was somebody at the building needs to know, not just the superintendent, right? And so the building principal should know. And although we said it's probably assumed that the building principal would know, by putting it in the
Yeah.
policy itself, it would make it like super clear.
Yeah, I think that's what I remember too, Diane. Just we basically wanted to make sure the policy followed whatever practice is already in place. So is this something that the building principal would be looped into? And if so, then let's get that in policy.
Yes.
I'm so glad you guys keep track of me.
We definitely do that. The minute we find out we're either CDC contacts us or we contact them, we let the principal know and we work with Diane or the superintendent, because then letters have to come out from the district and all of that.
So that was your full question, Leanne, about just adding the building principal part?
I think so.
Okay. And then I see that DHHS is highlighted in the next paragraph, but there's no note. Oh, that's the one about
That's
that we
yours.
talked about. Okay.
Because you were talking about why does it say just student and not adults? And I said, because we write policies for the most part for students, right?
Right. And we just need to make sure that because it's statutory, that there's something that deals with employees. Okay. So is this policy other than the one that we need to ask, the one provision we need to ask Kate about, adequate and satisfactory to everybody? So exciting.
I know, like we are like cranking out these policies
Yeah,
of late. We are a very productive committee.
awesome. Okay, if we do say so ourselves, it feels good to get stuff done.
Well, I'll say it, and I'm not on your committee. I love it.
Fatty. So great, we'll put that on for first reading too, and that will be really great to just let people know as soon as we can.
Okay, I've got that in my notes too.
Thank you. Okay, do we need, well, let me just look at what do we have. Yeah, so business operations is next. So do we have any other questions for our nursing professionals? Thank you so much.
I have a question. You're welcome. And it was nice to be here. I do have one quick question about the medication policy, and I am wondering where we're at with that. And I hadn't had a chance to ask Diane, well, I was planning on it, if Drummond Woodson had come up with anything new since 2018. I know that I drafted a policy.
Are you talking about JLCD?
Yes.
Yep. So I shared the.
Yes, you shared that one.
The draft with the policy committee last month. We haven't done anything with it.
Okay. So I'd be happy to work on that again if there are any updates. And then since did it a while ago, I was going to look at it anyways, just to make sure it was still accurate and up to date.
Yep.
Before you change or adopt that. So maybe could we ask if Drummond Woodsum has anything updated?
I did,
I
and
think-
that's what I have.
I'm sorry, what?
I said I did, and what I'll share with you is what they gave me.
Oh, thank you, Diane.
Yep. No, I just recently asked them for all the updates for the things that we were going to be looking at.
Perfect.
So maybe what we'll do is put that on a near a future meeting coming up and see if it needs to be amended. And if any of you have time between now and then and can let Diane know if you think that there's something that needs to happen, then we can invite you to the meeting and we can work together on it.
Perfect.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thank you so much for everything that you're doing outside of this too. I mean, Patty was like the biggest lifesaver to our family out of all of the providers that we talked to when we got COVID. I mean, she gave us the most guidance and reassurance, and it was pretty remarkable that it came from our school nursing staff. I mean, we were in touch with the CDC, and our doctor's office wasn't super helpful, and we had a walk-in clinic, and that we had an ER contact, and so it was pretty amazing, Patty. Thank you. You really helped us a lot.
You're welcome. Glad to help.
Yeah, it was really a great resource, and at a time where it was difficult, you don't picture, we all got sick together, and so it makes it difficult to advocate, and
Absolutely.
so it was really helpful to just have that natural pathway, and it was so helpful. Thank you.
And hard to be sick when you need to take care of your children.
Yeah, it is
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah.
Well, good. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you all.
Stay healthy.
And
Thank
Lisa,
you.
thank you for all
Thank
your
you.
work. You did.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, great to see you all. Thank you.
All right, so Kate is going to be coming in.
Okay, great. So maybe we'll start with the JLCC question for her.
Yep.
And you said, now I need to look, but Diane, didn't you say that JLCC falls under the student section of policies? Is
Yeah,
that,
the J policy, so it's a student policy.
and that was part of the question for Kate, right? Was that it's not really appropriate in this policy. Yeah.
Let me make sure she got my text. Oh, I didn't send it. I just have it in the thing. It helps when you push send.
Can you read the next set of policy letters so that I can get them open?
Which one are we going to do first?
Yeah.
DJE,
Okay.
and then we have DJH, and then BCB.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
I will be so happy when policy can meet in person. I so struggled with this committee virtually. I just need multiple monitors.
And you know what, even if you have multiple monitors, I will say like my last 2 weeks, I feel like I have been on screen just about all day, every day. Like it is just a lot,
I bet.
right?
Yeah.
Because yeah, it's just like I feel like I have gone blind in the last 11 months. Right?
Do you have blue blocking? Good.
I do. I got blue ones. I'm in via the net. Oh, Kate's here. We just need to promote her.
Look, she's got her little hand up and everything.
No, we're just like talking about ourselves. Hey, we're just trying to live our best lives here.
Seriously, in front of the computer screen. No human interaction.
Yep.
There she is.
Yes.
Sorry, guys. I was having a little issue over here too. My computer that I was all ready to go is like dead. I turn around, it's off. Thanks.
Oops.
Great. Okay. It's all good. I heard you talking about the joy of Zooming.
Yes. We're living our best life here.
Damn. I'm telling you, I need a makeup artist.
Oh.
Like, oh.
My friend has Zoom like Pro or whatever, and she said that it has the option to, I'm sure it looks terrible, but like fake, but
Enhance you.
yeah, it enhances.
I need that like to walk around with.
All right. So
Same.
I'm gonna test
I'm in the grocery
that
store
part.
and I turn on my little
Nice
enhancement thing, like an aura or something.
Exactly.
Oh,
There was one day that I was on it that like there was like this little like beta thing that you could test out and you could put lipstick on.
aw.
And I was like, oh
Nuh-uh.
my God, I do look better now.
That's
And
cool.
now I went to find it again and it's gone. I'm like, what? Nobody liked the lipstick?
It's
Come on.
Gone on your face. Be whitening out the eye bags.
Okay, I just sent you an email to the first policy that we're hoping to look at, which I think is a quick question for you here. Just sort of a loose end.
Oh, hello, diseases. I'm in.
You're in. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, excuse me turning my head here. I just got it on this other screen.
No problem. So we've gone over this policy at the committee level and then reviewed it with the nurses, and we're all set except one of the things that I noticed, and you'll see in the comment, is that the statute says student or employee. Now this policy applies only to students, and so I guess the question we had was, is there something that we have for our employees that make us in compliance with the statute?
Sorry, just reading here. So the statute is the piece about excluding from school. That's the reference for that?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I don't know off the top of my head, Alicia. I think I'm not sure that we've ever addressed it in a policy manual because it is statute.
Yep.
And you know, if we knew of a circumstance where an employee was, you know, we had knowledge that they had a communicable disease, we would be within our rights to remove them just because the statute exists and because employees are covered under that law. So I don't know that we've ever actually addressed it like in a manual or anything for staff. I don't think so.
My question about it was because it's a J policy, it's a student policy. And so as such, like adding staff to a student policy might not make sense.
Right, so this policy is about the responsibilities of school staff towards students and of students in their relationship with school. So yeah, I guess I hear that, Diane, and I would think that if you were going to have some kind of a policy around staff, that you would put it in a different section. But I don't know that I've ever heard that it's a need that we wouldn't be able to act because we don't have it in policy. We would be able to act with respect to an employee because it's in statute, and labor laws trump policy when it comes to something like that.
So my question was, we have the policy that outlines sort of the schools because they're a child, right? And they can't necessarily articulate adequately for themselves. With the school, if the child presents in this way, the school will react in this way to try to determine if the student may have a communicable disease. Now, if it's a staff member, do they have a responsibility to report to the school that they have a communicable disease is sort of my question. You obviously have the right to keep them out, but what if you have somebody that doesn't, do they have a responsibility to report it, I guess is.
I don't know if they do under the law. It's you sort of hope it's a trust thing, but I guess maybe in this day and age, it's not necessarily something you should be trusting about.
Maybe in 2019, I wouldn't even think that way.
I know, right? I know if we've got a little bit different worldview in terms of like your danger to me. I just saw a cat. I love cats.
Yeah.
Finally.
Sorry, squirrel. Yeah. So what I could do is I could check it out with some of my labor law buddies and say, are people instituting any kind of new approach to staff responsibilities around this, and bring it back around to you guys? Is that a good plan? Or, I mean, it's like you said, in 2019, we were going, yeah, whatever, we don't need that. But now we're, yeah, okay. And there's a ton of stuff that's changing in terms of the way employers and employees are relating to one another now that we've got COVID.
Yeah.
It's really opening up people's thought process around things like this. So,
well, it just occurred to me that when the statute says it and we're sort of establishing this protocol for students, it just made me wonder, do we have the same provision for staff, and should we? I mean, just, doesn't mean we should, but.
Yeah, so this is like, this is around the way the teacher behaves when they have reason to believe that there's a problem. Does it also say that the child's family has any kind of obligation? I'm sort of scanning here.
It says that they have to know that if the school thinks they have a communicable disease, they have to notify the students' parents. I mean, basically what will happen is the school thinks you could have a communicable disease. So the school sends you home, you need a doctor's note to come back. But for an adult employee, we would, I think, put the onus, if we wanted to, and if we think it makes sense, on the employee to report that if there's a possibility.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's kind of the mirror image of the policy, right? Because what you're saying about the kid is that they don't necessarily have the capacity or the knowledge or whatever to know that they should be saying, hey, I'm sick. Whereas you would assume or hope that an adult would, but what if they didn't? Are we saying that we expect our other staff members to be looking at you when you sneeze and going, what's wrong with you?
We'll send them to the nurse.
Because, yeah, they go to the nurse, unfortunately. But or fortunately, because we have that front line of defense when people get sick. But let me do a little asking around of my legal beagles around labor law and see what I can learn about how employers are handling that kind of thing.
It was just sort of a question because it said it in the statute, and we prescribed it for student behavior, and so I thought it was a
jot down the statute 63. breathe.
So to close the loop on the policy, we're taking employee out, correct?
Yeah, we never added employee in,
Okay.
but we just highlighted it so that we could have a further discussion with Kate about what, how we handle it and whether it's something we think is valuable or whatever, but just to sort of.
Yeah, I'm just taking a note here with the statute reference as well, so I can kind of call that out with some folks and see what the current thinking is.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, I think that policy is all ready then. That's amazing. Okay. So we had a couple of policies that Diane thought that you and Diane, I think, had a discussion about. And so we were going to invite you to talk about them.
Yeah, I appreciate you letting me in the door here. It's interesting because as I'm looking at the MSMA sample policy, I'm looking at what they have labeled as DJ. We have it labeled as DJE.
Yeah.
And the part that I really wanted to get an or in here was around the level of the price tag for the threshold for competitive bidding. And when I started working here, I believe it was at $10,000. And a few years ago, we bumped it up to $20,000. And knowing what I know today about the joys of competitive bidding processes, I would like to make a recommendation that we bump that up again, because there are a number of things that you might purchase for $20,000 that you really wouldn't want to go through a competitive bidding process every time. And in the current market and the current price tags on things, that becomes a little bit restrictive. And I know that there's the sort of, I don't want to call it a loophole, but there's the opportunity for you to come to the board and say, hey, we have a reason why we don't want to go through the bid process. And we've done that a couple of times. We did it with the minivan, with the wheelchair minivan that we purchased a year and a half ago. You might remember that one. And we did it at the speed of light with the storage shed project, because that was like, oh my God, you have to put the shed up tomorrow. But I don't really like to have to use a loophole. I think you might as well have a policy that actually meets your needs, if that's possible. And I'm not really sure what the right number is. I said 20, maybe go to 50, but I did want to bring that up for discussion. And I noticed that the main law, in the first paragraph of the MSMA sample policy, our policy says bidding required by law for school bus and transportation contracts, which I'll get to in a second, and then repairs over $100,000. They've upped that to over $250,000.
Right, I saw that too.
So the recommended policy is acknowledging something similar to what I'm saying, in that those price tags become less manageable when the cost of everything goes up. That was really the only sort of piece of info I wanted to put in. I know that they added in information about federally funded contracts, which is required language now. And it's something that came up because of the federal grant funding, people noticing that they didn't have that language in policy. So I see that's in there. And about buses, we don't do a bid process with RFPs and envelopes and things, because the state Department of Education does their own bid process, and they identify qualified vendors for buses, which is actually really cool, because every time, every school district in the state wants to go out and buy a bus, even though statute says you have to bid it, you don't have to individually as a school district go through a bid process, which is great because there's only like 2 vendors in the country that can actually produce a school bus. Maybe 3.
Okay, so if I understand you, I feel like I'm at snail's pace and you're at rabbit's pace. If I understand you correctly, under IA main law, you're good with the change, the 4 to 250.
I am, absolutely. I am grateful for the change.
Is everybody else okay with that? Lance, did you say yes? Was that a head shake? April, I didn't have my camera on. I was, how did you guys?
Yeah. Yes. I
Okay.
mean,
Everybody shout.
you know, to Kate's point, like the last time these policies were updated, the economy and the value of things is less. And so to have to bid something that is, you know, $20,000, it's kind of like the joke, like I can't leave my house without spending $100. Like,
Yeah, no kidding.
like, it's like, I leave
Yeah,
the
no
house
kidding.
and if I get
Well,
gas and get, you know, a couple things at the store, $100.
Right, exactly. It's $100. Now,
Yeah.
and the point is not to bypass the process of getting quotes. The point is not to be like, you know, if there's 2 or 3 vendors who will do something, of course we're going to go out and ask them to quote for us. We're going to say, hey, so and so gave it to us for $5,000. Why don't you want to do it? We'll do that all day long. It's the formal competitive bidding with the notice in the newspaper and the online RFP, and it adds a month.
Yeah.
And it adds
it costs.
cost.
Yeah.
It adds cost in the sense that somebody has to manage that process, which is typically me or Todd or, you know, whoever's doing the project. And then sometimes you actually have to get a consultant to help you write the specs, and then you got to pay them, and it's just
And
it's
publish it. Don't you have to publish it?
yeah, you have to put it in the newspaper. We still do print ads, which I don't know, maybe that'll fade away at some point, but we still do print ads. We post it on the website. And there are things that you want to do that for. In this same policy, it talks, or in that same law, I don't know if it's in policy, but in that same law, it talks about bidding insurance. Oh yeah, it's right in 1A is competitively bidding property and casualty insurance, which I have the pleasure of doing this spring. You do that every 5 years. So yeah, I mean, it's not to evade the option of getting competitive quotes. It's to evade the really complex and formal process of doing so.
And I think that's important. So to make that distinction so that if, you know, at first reading, we just say like, we're still, there's getting competitive quotes and then there's completing a formal RFP process. And just because we're saying we're not going to do that formal process doesn't mean we're not going to get those quotes.
Yeah. Right. And I think that, you know, the folks that we work with here are pretty frugal. Some would say stingy. And, you know, in most cases, if I'm spending more than a few $1,000s, I'm going to want to see that either that's the only vendor that does it, or, you know, if they are, can they give us a better price, or can I look at somebody else who might be able to give me that product? My colleague, Renee Smith, who I don't know if you've met her, she's our accounts payable and receivable specialist. She is a bear. She will fight a vendor for a penny. And she is often successful in doing so. And we have a lot of folks like that. So.
Okay, and then, so then under paragraph 2.
So you're looking at the MSMA one, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So under paragraph 2, we have it as, all right, let's see. So their 1A is our A, and then their 1B or IB is the federal language that we don't currently have. And then our B, I think, is number 2.
Mm-hmm.
competitive bidding of other purchases. And so they've got a blank there, it's our policy to bid purchases over X dollars. And what we have now is 20,000. And what I would propose, I think, is 50. I think that would be enough to keep us out of the weeds.
Is everybody okay with that number?
Yep.
So each blank will be 50, Kate?
Well, yeah,
not-
we don't have the number in that third paragraph. The superintendent may forego for purchases less than, or, oh, okay. So I just think that was sort of understood in ours, that if there's a threshold of 20,000, then if it's under 20,000, then never mind, right?
Hmm.
So that's what that first part of the sentence says. But if we want to be consistent, we can put the 50,000 in there as well.
I have a quick question on this. If we had to say one of the boilers just stops working and it came in at $75,000, would that mean that we would need to go out to bid and leave the building not being fixed while we were waiting for the RFPs to come in?
I think that's probably where your loophole is intended to come in. Right,
Okay.
because you're saying we have an emergency situation. We have a situation where we need to go out and we need to get a boiler for Blue Point School tomorrow. Now, chances are that there's probably only one or two vendors who could come up with a boiler because they actually build them to suit. So it might be one of those things where your loophole would be that this is the only vendor that has the product that we need when we need it. And if you read that sentence, it's other important considerations, but it's quality, expertise, time factors. And time factor, I think, is really what we're talking about here.
Okay.
And time factor is why we said Rispara was going to build us a shed, because we knew that there weren't any other folks lying around with a bunch of cool tools that could go build a shed in 10 minutes. So I think that, the policy and the law is written to understand that there may be an emergency situation and you just need to do it. But it also requires that the board knows about it, right? That the superintendent has said, we need the boiler at Blue Point School, but that the board is pulled into the conversation and is aware of that.
Just noticed I'm the only one on the document that I'm on.
I'm in there too.
Oh, you are? Yeah. Hi.
Yeah.
I thought that was me.
I'm
You
still
bring
on
up a good point,
JLCC.
Kate.
I gotta get something else
Yeah,
going.
I didn't open it either.
Well, I just want to make sure that I just want to make sure that what I was entering the changes into was the right document and I wasn't putting it in a different draft.
I'm just yakking. I'm not looking.
In
No,
a
that's fine.
case of where the superintendent is informing the board, it isn't stating that they need to get like a formal approval. Like, would we need to have an emergency meeting to authorize this? Or is it just simply Sandy calling April to say, hey, this is the situation and this is what I'm doing. Is that okay?
It gives the superintendent the discretion to solve that problem. And again,
Okay.
you don't want to necessarily abuse that. You don't want to make everything into an emergency because that doesn't really honor the process. But yeah, and I think if I remember when we did that, the van that we needed to get, because it was because we had a student come into the district unexpectedly and we had no way to transport that kid to school. And so, again, sort of a time sensitive thing. We can't keep this child at home. We can't necessarily ask somebody else to transport them. So we need to solve the problem pronto. And I think at that time we either had a board meeting scheduled or we had a finance committee meeting scheduled. And Sandy and I brought it to the table and said, here's what's going on. Here's the solution we found. And it was kind of, shaking, nodding of heads. There wasn't any vote that needed to be taken, but we wanted to make sure that everybody was in the loop.
Okay.
So
I just didn't know how like specific we had to be.
I've read this proposed policy. And because it's such a technical area, my thought was not going through it word by word and making sure that we're all on board, because I would be super hesitant to make any changes. I mean, obviously we could go through legal and see, but I suspect that this is such a technical area that it's a little bit different than other policies. And, but I don't want to like say that approach is right. So if you want to go through it line by line, I'm happy to do it, but that was my thought.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I feel like the section in the sample policy under 3, I've got all my pages mixed up here, is the same as what we have under bidding procedures. It's pretty much standard operating procedure for running a competitive bid process. So I wouldn't have any objections to just leaving that language as is.
So can we say that this is ready for first reading as well?
Yep,
Okay.
go for it.
Yeah, the only thing that's different is they put these little header in some places, but yeah, it's more the formatting than anything else that's different. I do like that it has the line that the contract will be awarded to the lowest bidder, which we decide can satisfactorily fulfill the contract, because I really hate policies that say you must give the award to the lowest bidder because the lowest bidder is not necessarily the best bidder.
Right.
And, you know, I've seen other organizations run into some trouble with that. Like, I'm the low bid, okay, and I'm also a mess, and your project just went down the drain.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Okay, I'll add that one to the list for the 25th. too.
Awesome. We have DJH.
Which one do we open?
Yeah, I've got them all up now because
I
I was
don't
the wrong
know.
one a minute ago.
Hold on. All right, we'll get them all in there.
I don't think I have a copy of DJH. Oh wait, is that the same? Is it also DJH in MSMA?
Yeah, so I actually gave you all both of them so that, and again, I'll be honest and let you know that I haven't had time to crosswalk them. But one of them is a sample from Drummond Woodsum and one is a sample from MSMA. So I apologize that I haven't like done that cross comparison.
This is the code of conduct.
Couple things going on.
If you ever talk to Ann Chapman
Oh, here it is.
about
My bad.
one of the things that I think would be really helpful is when they do a sample policy is to put the date on the sample policy where they've drafted it, because
Like their most recent update is
updated this date, because I can never tell which one's the newest
So their
recommended
sample
policy.
policy, if you look at it at the top, it says 2018.
Where? We're not in the same one.
Well, I don't know why. So
That was
I'm on the one that says it's the first in the file, and it's called DJH Purchasing and Contracting Procurement Staff Code of Conduct updated DWM sample. You see that one?
I've got a copy of an MSMA sample.
The one that's the top is, for me, is not that one.
But do you see the one that has like the most words in the title? That's the Drummond Woodsum sample. I don't know how many words you can see on your screen.
Yeah, sample policy 2018. Yeah, and then, but then I have one that says
then there's another one that's MSMA sample policy and it's not dated.
Oh, that's MSMA's simple policy. Okay. Oh, that wasn't Drummond Woodson's. Duh.
That's okay. And again, I don't know if there's any value in showing you both of them, but I figured since both were available.
Yeah.
If we're gonna make some change, if we're making some updates, we should probably like lock it in, right?
I love the required provision and
Right.
recommended provision.
Yeah, and like this particular policy, we have not revised since 2008.
Yeah, I'm looking at ours right now.
There was a reason why, though, Diane, I think that you and Kate, these policies we specifically
Yeah, so these
have on the agenda for.
Yeah, they came up when we were talking about, Kate, remember the CRF funds and the maintenance shed being built and how we were going to work around, you know, we looked at the bidding process, like that piece, right? Because we had to.
And we got some advice from Drummond Woodsum about the intersection between federal purchasing law,
Right.
Federal grant purchasing manual, and what our policies had to say. I think that where that was addressed was what we were just looking at in DJE, where they actually specify and articulate what's required for federal contracts, which we don't have in our current language. And that was something that Drummond Woodsum really wanted to make sure that we did have. So I think we've got that piece. I'm not sure if there's anything in the code of conduct.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is just like the companion policy.
Right, this is
So
the
we
one that goes.
figured if we were looking at one, we should probably look at both of them in conjunction, especially given the fact that it hadn't been reviewed since 2008 and the model policy is from 2018, right? So I've got to imagine that there are some changes there.
Yeah, I'm trying to do a little crosswalk here, and most of the language looks the same. There are a couple of other things here.
Given the time, Kate, generally we go through these and sort of make sure we're all on board with it, especially the recommended stuff. Is that something that you've had ample opportunity to think about and make suggestions for us, or do you want to be included in that discussion?
As far as DJH is concerned, I think it's fine as presented. The piece that I'm looking at is the MSMA one, and it adds a little bit of language about gifts and solicitations. Other than that, it's pretty much what we've been doing, and it looks good to me.
Okay, then my suggestion would be that we move on to the next policy that we need to address with Kate, and we'll go back just as a committee and look at whatever that was, DJH again.
DJH, yeah.
Okay. So next is BCB. Board member conflict of interest.
That is- So yeah, again, I'm looking at the MSMA one. You guys have one from Drummond Woodsum as well?
Yeah.
And again, like this one was last revised in 2013.
And the Drummond Woodsum was updated 2018. Was this something that, Diane, that you and Kate wanted to address specifically, or was this again just because it was sort of?
I honestly have to tell you, like, I do not recall how this came up.
It's referenced in DJH at the bottom of DJH. So maybe because there was a reference in
Packaged it up
DJH,
together.
it said,
Yeah, and I think that it's the federal piece as well, because as far as I can tell, our BCB does not call out specifically anything about federally funded projects. And the MSMA one does. Do you have that in Drummond Woodsum as well?
Yes, right. So it references policy DJH.
But in our current BCB, there's no specific reference to federally funded projects. And I think that was what Drummond Woodsum wanted with us to make sure that we had that.
Does have that. Okay, so now that's all coming, right? Because when we talked with Bill Stockmeyer,
Yeah.
Really wanted to make sure that our policies were in line. And so he gave us this one as well. And it does, right? So if you look at the Drummond Woodsum sample policy in section A, that paragraph after number 2,
Yeah.
where it talks about those federal awards.
So that's sufficient to cover his concern?
Yes, yeah, they just, they wanted to make sure that we had specific language that was about federally funded projects, because that's one of the requirements in the federal manual. And so what they're worried about is, now that everybody's had their zillions of dollars from the feds, if someone comes in and does an audit, says, oh, your policy doesn't match the requirements of the manual. So that's why Drummond Woodsum was particularly noticing that some updates might need to get done.
Okay.
I think it's exactly the same thing that we're doing with DJE, just saying, oh yeah, and we have this language about federally funded contracts. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. So then we'll come back on this one too. And we've got Kate's input then, and we'll come back, circle back around on that too. And make
Kate
sure.
wants more money.
Yeah.
Less
So-
work and more money.
Yeah, the other thing, I don't know, Kate, if word got back to you, is we did talk about reviewing our budget policies,
Oh yeah.
what we've decided, and I think somebody was going to talk to Sarah. Oh, it was probably me. I don't know if I did. Yeah, I think it was me. It was that because of the charter review, that it may make sense to wait until after the charter review. And see what comes out of that conversation, and then
Right, because there's this whole intersection, and the town manager and I sat down a couple of years ago with the finance director and lawyers, and who does what first and in what order, and even the attorney for the town was a little confused because statute doesn't quite match up with charter, doesn't quite match up with policy. And so you're right, if they're going to work on the charter and change any language in there, we might just be doing the work twice.
So anyways, I don't want you to think we forgot about that, but that was our thought process. If you think that makes sense, then that seals
Yeah, totally. Do we know what the timeline is for that? I know that Leanne had sent some stuff around to look at. I know, and I also saw that one of the town council's goals is to fix the damn charter.
Quickly, they're hoping to vote on it for March 30th,
Wow.
which when you look at the date being, February 9th, that's pretty aggressive. I don't know how it's going to get there in that timeline. The committees are they've broken into subcommittees. They're attacking this quickly, but there's been a lot of feedback that it's going too fast from the community. So that's part of the conversation for tomorrow night.
Mm-hmm.
But if there are things specifically, Kate, that you want to address with respect to charter and the timing and how budgets are in there, let me know, and I'm happy to bring it back to the committee to address, because this is our chance.
Yeah. And I'm interested to hear that there's this sort of aggressive timeline, and you sort of think, well, why? If this is going to be something that's really important to go through carefully, and we're setting an artificial deadline that makes the work go too quickly. I don't know.
I appreciated the fact that we had guardrails for what they wanted to get done. I thought that was, that's helpful. It gives people something to work towards, but it is fast.
Yeah. Well, and maybe it's because they don't really see the point in a lot of changes.
Well, and to your point, do they not see a lot of point to changing the guidelines around referendum and working backwards from that because they don't care or know that they match up with our school board policies? Like that's part of it. This is not a criticism. It's just how their knowledge of our procedures and then our protocols matches up with the deadlines and the dates that they put into the charter may not have become front and center just how intertwined all that stuff is. And so to them, they think, okay, yeah, you will post the second Tuesday in June will be the referendum and that'll be fine.
Right. And
all broken up.
Yeah, and there's a statutory piece as well about school budgets that it kind of makes your head spin a little bit when you try to put all those puzzle pieces together, and maybe we don't want our heads to spin any more than they already are. It's okay, fine, let's just do it. But yeah, I'll definitely reach out if there's anything that I see that I feel like has a big impact. I mean, I've been kind of riding along to try to interpret what's there and not really thinking that hard about what could be done differently. So I'll look at it with that lens as well.
Okay.
Thank you. So we've got 9 minutes. I thought maybe we could just talk about what we're going to review next time.
You want to kick me out?
You're welcome to stay if you're interested in
I'm
that.
right here. I'm not going anywhere.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for helping us through that, though.
You're welcome.
So my thought was we would just finish up DJH, BCB, look at BDE, and if time permits, do the school calendar if that's appropriate timing.
Yes, we definitely will want to do the school calendar.
Do you want the school calendar prioritized over the others, or what?
And what is
I don't know
the date of this meeting is going to be when? We have it on the calendar already, right? It's
Yeah.
Same Tuesday. deal?
March 9th, yeah, so.
Yeah, so we definitely would like it to come then. I have a subcommittee that we're working together on, and we're going to run some things by the Leadership Council tomorrow and then get some input from other groups. So March 9th would be perfect.
Okay. So that will be the first policy, the first thing we do, I guess. And can you forward it so that we can like really look at it?
Calendar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why it was like little for me last time, but
You mean at the school board meeting?
yeah.
Yeah. So, and remember, like what we have so far is just like that skeletal framework with like what days is school and what days are not. And so the things that we haven't worked out that are going to be really important at the local level is, what does that start of school look like in terms of, that first day or those first days back? Because we had modified some things this year, obviously, because of the changes. And do we just roll back to 2 years ago, or are there some learnings that we had from the way we did things differently that we might want to continue? And then the second piece is, consideration of, late start / early release time. Because again, this year we've had early release on Wednesdays because of the hybrid model. And formally we had late starts. And before that, we had early release. Like I'm getting like a big history lesson on Scarborough as I talk about calendar with people. So, those are things that we want to take into account what's already happened in the past, but then also really pay attention to like, where are we right now and what do we need now? So those are the things that we're going to kind of be, playing around with and getting feedback from people on. So
Okay.
our first meeting was really to kind of just talk about those things. And we're going to go back to leadership council. And what we want to do is come up with some different scenarios, like some possibilities of what those things could look like. And then survey staff and families about that. So then, you know, when we come back to you, we can say, you know, here are the different possibilities that we had come up with that we thought could work. And then here's the feedback that we got from different groups so that you can use that to help make that determination.
It's tough because you don't know what it's gonna look like.
We're really hoping to be back full time. That's our goal.
It'd be great. Don't you
Would
just
be.
want everything back to normal?
Get some vaccines here sooner than later. It's gonna happen.
Let's go. I'm ready.
Top
Okay.
to top.
Yeah, seriously.
I'm with you.
Okay, that's a good plan then, I think. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Kate, for joining us. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Always fun to read policy.
Yeah, I love it. All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
Uh,
Guys
Yeah.
safely.
Thank you.
Bye.